Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Native Child Family Services of Toronto's Decolonizing Child Welfare webinar. This is our learning series and we're on episode 5 today. We're going to be visiting with folks from our holistic services team to talk about all the amazing things that they do and all the amazing programs that they run. My name is Terry Jaffe. I'm the Senior Supervisor of Cultural Programming and I'll be your fearless guide and host today. I'm seeing we've got a few attendees in the room and we're going to get started in just a moment, but the most important thing to do is to welcome Pat Green and start our time together off in a good way. Welcome, Pat. Oh, you have to turn yourself off mute.
Unmute. There you go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pat Green. My real name is Chudehat. I'm Owohongo Haudenosaunee from Six Nations, and my clan is Wolf Clan. And I want to welcome everyone to our virtual village here. And what I know of all of our people, we would greet people at the edge of our village, and at the edge of the forest, and greet you as you come in. And we would help comb your hair, clear our thoughts, so that we come in and be one mind. We wash out the eyes so things are being seen, are meant to be seen. And then we would wash out the ears so that the words that are spoken are the words that are meant to be heard. Sometimes we only hear and see what we want to see and hear. And then we're given a drink of water to clear that passageway from our minds to our hearts, so that when we speak, that we choose the most tender words that we can, not to hurt anyone with our words. In our way, we present how we are in our village, not to impose values or ideas or concepts, but to share what we have, to share what our thoughts are, and to share what our existence is all about, so that we know who we're dealing with it as they come into our village. So I want to welcome everyone in. I have an open mind today. My feelings are very well. My heart is doing really well. I'm here, and I think that's really important. I think what we're dealing with here, and sharing the knowledge and sharing our ways of being is very important, so that we understand each other and where we come from. So thank you very much for giving me this time to pull our minds together, be one mind and one heart. Thank you very much.
With Pat, thank you. And of course, we'll be coming back to Pat here and there as we go through our presentation. I'm distracted by my background. I feel disembodied. But I want to turn it over now to Jeffrey Schiffer and say, hi, Jeffrey, how are you doing today?
Miigwech, Terry, thank you. Doing great. Really glad that we're here gathered today in this virtual circle to talk about, as you said, I like how you called it an episode, the 5th episode in our installment of the work that we do here at Native Child. I want to thank Pat Green for starting us off in a good way and grounding us. And just give thanks for another day, but really for an opportunity to talk about the beginning of Native Child, because Native Child did start as an agency that was delivering prevention services. And so what we're going to be talking about today has a lot of names. We'll talk about it as our holistic services, our prevention services, our early intervention services. Really, these are the culturally grounded family support services that were the first services delivered by Native Child, and that have continued to grow and develop across the city of Toronto, together with community and our partner agencies. And really, this is the underpinning of the work we do. Over the last 4 modules, we've really broken down a lot of the work that happens at Native Child within the context of our Child and Family Wellbeing portfolio, right? Today, we're going to talk about all of the services that we use to wrap families in holistic supports. And so I just want to thank all of the team members that are here today to share a little bit about the programs and services they offer, and thank everyone in the community who's gathered for this latest installment of our learning series on decolonizing child welfare. We're looking forward to continuing to move through this, and then to getting to a place at the end of September where on the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation we can talk and not only showcase all of the stuff that we've talked about over the course of this series, but many of the ideas for transformation that we've been generating together with community over the last year. I'll turn things back over to you, Terry Miigwech.
Thank you, Jeffrey Miigwech. So I just want to let the folks know a little bit about our agenda. If you're watching, we will have a presentation from Holistic Services. So all these fine people that you see here in front of you, and we'll have a little bit of a check-in with Pat, and Mark Atanasoff has a presentation. And then there'll be an opportunity for questions from the audience. So there is a Q&A feature here in Zoom, and you'll see that down on the bottom of your screen, kind of like where your raise hand feature and that sort of thing is. So at any time, you can pop a question into the chat, but we'll answer them all at the end. But if you've got it on your mind and you just want to ask a question, you can put it in any time, and then we'll have time at the end to get to all your questions. But for now, I want to introduce Siobhan McCarthy, the Director of Holistic Services. And hi, Siobhan, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks very much, Terry. Hello, everybody. I am, as Terry said, the Director of Holistic Services here at Native Child and Family Services. It's an honor to lead the wonderful team that delivers all of these amazing services. And I'd like to talk about all of the services, but I think it's very important that you hear directly from the folks who are providing them. So I wonder if I could get my slideshow up, and then I can go through each of those slides and introduce everyone. So thank you very much. So we're here to talk about our, as Jeff said, we call them a variety of different things: holistic healing, prevention, early intervention. The key to all of this is that our goal at all times is to keep families together, to keep them healthy and to keep them well. And when there are times that they are unable to be together, our goal is to find ways to support them, to assist them, and to ensure that they're thriving as soon as possible. So this graphic was created by Melissa Hamonic, who is our Associate Director of Holistic Services. She isn't with us here today, but I think this really captures the way we view our work and the guiding principles behind our work. At the core of our work is the land, where all of our Indigenous worldviews and practices sit, and that within that is our connection to kinship and the teachings that we have. We're graced to have Pat Green here today to answer questions and to lead us in a good way. And we have a number of knowledge carriers that we have wonderful relationships with to help guide our work. And one of the things that's happened at Native Child over the last number of years is that we've been able to really increase our cultural supports across the organization. And to, I know at a later date, there'll be a presentation about our cultural supports, but I wanted to be sure that everyone knows that all of our work is grounded in culture, and we try and keep that at the forefront when we're working with our families. Next slide, please. So our holistic services, as mapped out on the medicine wheel, starting at the eastern doorway, starts with our early years, and that encompasses a variety of different services that we're going to have Jen Gray report on to all of you. Then in the southern doorway, we have all of our youth services, which are vast, and we're really excited to share those with you. At the western doorway, we have our community and family supports, which are essential to family well-being. And then at the northern doorway, we have our clinical programming, which is quite extensive and has expanded over the years to include many new programs and services. And Daniela Robinson is going to be sharing that information with you. What this means, though, is that families often go through, can we just go back? Thanks. Families often go through the medicine wheel. They might enter at one end and come out, and then enter later on and come out. But that what we want families to think about is that we're here for all of the generations. We're here for all the needs of families as we look at the medicine wheel and as we look at a family's trajectory through our services. Thank you. Could you, next slide, please? So I'm going to introduce Jen Gray, and she's going to speak to you about all of our wonderful early years programming. Jen? Be sure to unmute. There you go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Gray. I'm the Supervisor of Early Years Programs. We provide a various range of programs for our children and families. We have Aboriginal Head Start, which is a preschool program that is purely culture based. We also have our Early On program, which is more of a community-based program where our families come in and they're supported through our RECEs and provided cultural programming. Our child care is also a support service within the community to provide childcare and respite for our families. And we have a cultural approach alongside that as well. On the land programming, it's just that, it's to connect our families to the land and provide a cultural environment for them outdoors to be able to support our families culturally in that sense. Our programming provides culturally centered environments supporting learning through connected play in relationship to land. Programs provide space for caregivers and children to strengthen their relationship along with respite opportunities for caregivers alongside their own well-being. Now, through our programs, we empower our children and families with a range of service, including the wraparound services that Siobhan had just mentioned. Through our programs, we support our families culturally with language, arts, and dance. We expose our children at a young age to culture and programming so that the children are fostered through their early stages in their well-being in a good way, to be able to support these families through what they know, what they are aware of at home for culture. Through our programs, we also have interactive moments where we ask our parents to provide support through our community and parent councils. And that helps guide us to know where our families want to be, need to be within our within our urban environment. Thank you. I would like to go to the next slide, and I'd like to introduce Julie.
Hi, Ani, everyone. I'm happy to be a part of this web learning series, and my name is Juliana Mwasigi, and I'm Anishinaabe and French. My family come from Serpent River First Nation, and I'm born and raised in Toronto, but have that connection to my Serpent River First Nation community and visit often. And I'm just, so excited to share with everyone about our youth services program and eventually our family and community programs. So before we get into our youth services, I'm going to say information, we have a wonderful video to share with all of you, and we'll start with the video first, and then we'll move into a little bit more information about our youth program. Kayla, can I get your support? Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Justin Moore. I'm the supervisor of youth engagement here at the Native Youth Resource Center, and I wanted to invite you guys in to meet some of our staff and hear some more about our programs.
Ani, my name's Evan, drop-in worker here at the Native Youth Resource Center.
I'm Jem, I'm a drop-in worker at the Native Youth Resource Center.
And yeah, you'll find us here day to day, making sure the door's open and that the youth are getting access to the resources they need. Typically what we do Monday through Friday, 11 to 7 right now, is just make sure that the youth get tokens, they get food, and we put them in touch with the right staff here at the Native Youth Resource Center, depending whether they need help with housing, cultural activities, educational programming, stuff like that.
We also do referrals to other agencies in the area, so that's a huge part of our role, and being knowledgeable in that area.
And all in all, just try and create a safe, sort of fostering environment here day to day.
codes. How you guys doing? My name is Dries Kazuba. I'm the youth and transition worker at the Native Child and Family Services. I help youths transition out of care with housing, school, life skills, and also if you want to come in and drop it, I'll give you food cards and tokens. But when you come into the drop-in, you get to see all the good stuff. Like we got Mario Kart here, and half the time you're gonna see me sitting right here playing Call of Duty. Whoever's good at Call of Duty, man, come on and join us. Peace, man.
Hi everybody, my name is Mike. I'm the drop-in center cook at the NYRC. I provide 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as well as some healthy, nutritious snacks. As well on Thursdays, I conduct a cooking class with the AYESB students, where we concentrate on menu planning, recipes, and any sort of budgeting that goes along with that as well. So yeah, I'm here 5 days a week, pretty well all day. So come one, come all. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Ani, bonjour, my name is Shannon Casey. I'm Cree First Nation and French Canadian. I am the Aboriginal Youth Employment Skill Building Program Coordinator, and that is the AYESBP program. I'm sure all of you have heard about it. This program works with 10 youth every 6 months, developing their goals, reducing employment barriers, and moving forward with their education. Be rich.
Hey, my name is Erica Phillips. I'm working with Sherry Casey here as the education assistant. I'm working with the youth, hands-on every day, doing skill building. We do outings, just getting to know the area and resume building, everything like that. If you're looking for a job, we can help you with that.
What's up everyone? Devin Fan here from the Native Youth Resource Center. I'm the Youth Recreation Programmer here. I work for Parks and Rec. We have all kinds of recreation programming here. I teach Kung Fu here every week, so if you want to learn self-defense, come on out. Also run the music studio. You can have your own recording studio time here. Walking club, bike club, meditation, you name it. We've got all kinds of programs. Hope to see you out here. Be wet.
Hey, I'm Mercedes. I'm one of the youth workers here at the NYRC. I'm a YIT worker and I support youth with building capacity, life skills, goal setting, education and employment goals, and helping them successfully transition into adulthood. So we support youth 16 to 29. Hey, it's Mercedes again. So right now we're in the 7th Gen studio, and in this space we support youth around multimedia. So we do photography, we do visual arts, so we do things like murals throughout the city, as well as traditional arts. So we do things like beadwork, regalia making, and this is to support youth with their entrepreneurship skills. So we have a lot of youth who come to these spaces and start their own businesses, or it helps them get their foot into the door and getting to know different organizations that support in this area as well.
Hey, my name's Evan, and this is Tribal Lands. This is an Indigenous youth streetwear project that we run under the NYRC. Our youth over the last year developed an entire brand. They came up with the concept and the designs and even this logo here. And we've been selling these products for the last year. It's been a lot of fun, and it's just one of those sort of multimedia projects that not only the youth get to have fun with, but also us here as staff. We really do get a good kick about being a part of the streetwear community and you know, representing the culture. So that's Tribal Lands.
Hi everyone, my name is Kamini Sharma. I'm the Supervisor of Family and Community Programs here at Scarborough Child and Family Life Center. Welcome, come on in.
Hi, I'm Janika Lohr-Johnson. I'm the lead at the after school program at the Galloway location. We have the kids ages 7 to 11. We pick them up from school, 3 to 6, come back to the center where we do smudge, gratitude, then we do snack with activities such as physical literacy, sports, crafts, painting, and we have a lot of fun every day.
Hi everyone, I'm Courtney Swales. I am the Recreation and Wellness Coordinator here at Scarborough Child and Family Life Center, and I am here to work with youth revolving around recreation wellness activities such as connecting with outside agencies such as the Pan Am Center to run some programs around physical literacy and just overall wellness. I also am teaming up with some staff around summer camps and seeing how we can involve physical literacy, wellness, and just overall mental health into the programs.
Hi, my name is Valerie Kern. I'm the Assistant Supervisor here at Scarborough Child and Family Life Center. I'm here to tell you a little bit about our drop-in programs. They're offered every day from 11 to 7, and it's where you can come in and get some resources done. You can come have a hot meal, you can have lunch, you can have snacks, you can play video games, you can come meet our rec worker, you can have help with your resume, you can learn about our ASYBP program. There's so many different things to offer, so I think you should just come on down and speak with one of our staff. Bye-bye.
Ani bonjour, my name is Rita. I'm the Ashkabewas here at Malvern Aboriginal Child and Family Center. Come on in and let's learn a little bit more about our programs happening here.
Hello, I'm Victoria Dixon. I'm the Aboriginal Child and Youth Worker here at Malvern. I facilitate and plan weekly programming, and currently I am overseeing the Cooking with Girls and the Girls Group program. With Cooking with Girls, it's all about creating healthy choices with food, studying like your relationships with food while cooking a nice dinner and eating it together with the youth staff. We also have Girls Group, which focuses on the 7 grandfathers teachings, and we do fun activities weekly, and we have a facilitator that comes in as well.
Hi, my name is Katie Dooling. I'm the Aboriginal Child and Youth Worker here at Malvern. Currently, we run weekly youth programs, including our On the Land program for ages 7 to 11, where we go out on land, do land-based activities, and just hang out together. And we also run different Saturday special events where we do trips, and we do different activities both here at our site as well as out in our community.
Hi, my name is Amy Moore, and I am the On the Land Worker. I facilitate cultural outdoor programming to children, youth, and families. I also run a mentorship program called Medicine Sisters, and what I do is I teach powwow dancing to young Indigenous women.
Hi, I'm Randy. This is the Mount Dennis location at 1290 Weston Road, and welcome. Hi, I'm Randy. I'm the Child and Youth Worker here at Mount Dennis. I work with children and youth ages 6 to 29 and their families. Some of the programs we have are art and crafts. We have recreation, like a bike club happening, and we do culture nights on Thursdays. So with that, we do some cultural activities and meals with the community, and we're working on our summer schedule to start engaging some of our older youth as well.
Hi, my name is Oria Diamond Gunner. I'm the Recreation and Wellness Coordinator at Mount Dennis. Mostly I've been helping with facilitating after-school programs such as Arts and Crafts Night and Games Night, and on-the-run programming. I also help with Culture Night, and we're going to be implementing more community-based programming for our recreation and wellness days.
Hi, my name is Angel. I'm the Circle of Care Coordinator here at Mount Dennis. I'm the staff liaison that helps oversees connections within communities, agencies, supports, and resources. And I work directly with children, youth, and families, and I specifically help support with youth programming.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. That is Native Child and Family Services Youth Programs 2022. Hope to see you again soon.
All right, that was a wonderful video. I'm gonna just add a little bit more information about our youth services program. So they operate out of various sites. We've got our Native Youth Resource Center, which is on Bloor Street. We have our Malvern and Scarborough Child and Family Life Center that are located in the east end of the city, and our Mount Dennis location, which is in the west end. You know, but with our youth services downtown, I just want to highlight that you didn't get a chance to see our recording studio, but there is a recording studio there that youth can book and schedule one-to-one sessions to record their own music, or even learn about how to use the the equipment and produce your own music. Also in Scarborough, there's a recording studio there as well. If there are any youth who are in need of food supports, we tend to have lots of donated food from Second Harvest and North York Harvest and Daily Bread Food Bank. We can get together food bags for people to take home. And of course, you know, there are always meals offered at our various sites. And regarding education, you saw Sherry Casey and Erica talk about the Aboriginal Youth Employment Skills Building Program. That is a program that's been running for over 10 years, I'm going to say, and it's a 6-month-long program to help youth, you know, identify their education and employment goals. And it's a very successful, long-running program of ours. Youth justice workers to support youth who might be involved in the justice system. And also there's groups through youth justice programming that offer, I would say, a healthy communication workshop series, transitional housing. Native Child and Family Services of Toronto have up to, I think, 5 transitional housing programs. And that's for youth age 16 to 25. And our housing workers, we have 2 youth housing workers who support youth with housing case management, referrals, connecting them with landlords that we know have, you know, safe housing opportunities for people, and also referrals for different housing allowance subsidy programs and referrals to subsidized housing. And I encourage, if you know of any youth, please just reach out to our youth services, and just all of our team members are ready and, you know, excited to help any youth that need that extra support. Okay, we're jumping into the transitional housing program here. So let's see, regarding our housing program, yes, we have a rental apartment as well. So the rental apartment is for all ages, not just youth specific. And we have housing that's specific for parents and housing that's specific for men as well. And we also have a hotel program that offers housing to youth. And if anyone is in need of housing, just connect with one of our programs and just ask to speak to a youth housing worker, and they'll be sure to complete that intake to get that youth into one of our housing programs if it's the right fit for them. Can I see the next slide? Okay. So family and community programs. These are wonderful programs that are just, you know, vibrant, energetic groups that happen at our community hubs. So our community hubs, we have Scarborough Child and Family Life Center, Malvern, and Mount Dennis. And these 3 sites offer very similar programs. We have weekly culture nights that are for all families, community to join, participate in different cultural activities and teachings. And also there's always food involved. And what I love about these culture nights is that it's parents and the different departmental staff working together to make our culture night a success. You'll tend to find parents coming in extra early to help prepare meals. Some parents might even volunteer and want to lead a cultural activity. And I would say that this was probably one of my favorite programs that we run through our community hubs. And it's always so joyful. It's a lot of work, a lot of families coming out, but just that good energy and coming together as community is just, you know, a pleasure. Cultural camps. Native Child and Family Services of Toronto, we have our summer day camp programs that happen in Scarborough and downtown, and we have our residential camp programs. And these programs have been running for a very long time. I'm going to say probably 20 years, maybe even just a little bit more. And these culture camps, they're culture camps. They're always grounded with cultural teachings, cultural knowledge keepers and elders coming in to support, everyone's learning and getting those opportunities to be on the land and participate in ceremony as well. And, these culture camps are for, families that come together, parents and their children. And then we have some individual camps where there might be specific age groups of children that would go to these camps without their parents. On the land programming, my colleague Jen mentioned earlier about on the land programming. So we have different on the land workers that work out of all of our community hubs. And sometimes they'll even travel to different community hubs and work with our other staff, such as our child and youth care workers or Shkabewis. All of our department staff work collaboratively together, to provide, that on the land based programming for our families. Family supports. We have different workers. They might have job titles of family navigator or circle of care worker. And these workers, they help connect our families to certain services that they might need, just to support them with, their goals and their well-being. And regarding our community hubs, I would just say our community hubs, they're gathering places for our community to come together, stop in, visit. You might not want to join a program, but everyone is more than welcome to pop in, ask to meet with one of our staff, chat, have a coffee, and visit. And that's what all of our community hubs are about. It's about, coming in and gathering together as Indigenous kin. So I hope that people are really excited, to hear about these programs, and I hope that people will come out and check us out. And the next slide, I'm not sure if that's me. All right, and we have some photos of our programming. And this is clinical services. I will introduce Daniela Robinson. She'll be speaking on this next slide. Chimigwich.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today to learn together and to grow together. My name is Daniela Robinson. I'm Big Stone Cree, Italian, Sagittarius, my three favorite ways to introduce myself. I am the supervisor of the Bakondigan program, which is Healing Team 4. I have been with Native Child, I believe, since 2019. And I just am so constantly amazed at how expansive our programming is and how it just continues to grow. There are 4 really important cornerstones or foundations for our programming on clinical services, and that's prevention, education, intervention, and healing. And what that means is that we do a lot of work to support community members before they get into situations that can be quite challenging, because we always know that it's harder to get them out of those really difficult situations while they're in it, versus working with them to prevent those challenges. We also do a lot of education. We're always educating each other and supporting each other in our learning, but we also do a lot of education in the community and with other agencies so that they can understand more about what it means for Indigenous community members to be Indigenous within the context of colonization, and some of those unique challenges that our community members face as a result of a number of challenges that have happened historically. We also look at intervention. So even though we obviously do work to prevent challenges, when challenges do arise, we do our best to intervene in the most holistic way possible. And something that I always say is that the more holistically you can look at a situation, the more opportunities for intervention there are. And so that's really the lens that we work from. And then we look at healing. So it's not just about intervening and stopping an issue. It's about helping people to heal and meeting people where they're at, because we recognize that healing is going to look different for everybody. And that healing can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I'm just going to quickly run through what is really just a snapshot of everything that we do at Holistic Services. So we have the Mukayam team, which is a very, very well-known service in clinical services. It's our counseling team, and they are so incredible and so wise, and everybody has a different lens, and everybody is very willing and able to support people where they're at. Meeting people where they're at just means recognizing that somebody may be in a really difficult situation in their life. And so as clinicians, it's their responsibility to support them, that community member, in a way that is meaningful to the community member, and in a way that makes those clinical supports as accessible as possible. They do traditional counseling, so offering a number of Indigenous perspectives. They do supportive counseling for people who may be in too difficult of a situation in terms of their circumstance to do trauma processing. There's trauma assessments. We can support with psychological assessments because we do have a number of clinicians who can provide those in agency. Psychiatric referrals whenever those are necessary, and really supporting children of all ages. We recognize that at different stages of a person's life, there's going to be different challenges that are coming up. And so the clinical team is built to support people in a way that meets the needs of folks of different ages, different levels of experience, different backgrounds. There's also developmental support services where a family might be experiencing particular needs because of developmental challenges within the family. And we have really, really wonderful developmental support workers who have a lot of experience working with folks who have FASD. And that's been really, really helpful for families. We also have the Lodge, the Healing Lodge, which is a really wonderful treatment program for mothers who the program is meant to support them so that they don't have to have their children taken to a place of safety. It's meant to support mothers who have addiction challenges and mental health struggles, so that they can remain with their child in this supportive program that's usually 3 to 6 months, and or to help them work towards reunification. So the Healing Lodge is really a culmination of a lot of what Holistic Services has learned over the years, which is that in order to support families and to keep families together, sometimes it means treating really, really difficult things. And we know how difficult substance use can be for people. And so we try to honor that difficulty using a holistic healing model. We also have developmental support services, which I mentioned earlier, but our developmental support workers support community members with a wide range of developmental challenges or struggles, everything from FASD, as I mentioned, to cognitive and processing challenges that can kind of manifest in a lot of difficulties for families. We also have the anti-human trafficking team, which is the team that I support. So the name that was given to us by Elder Don Enns is Bakondigan, which means being peaceful. And the purpose of the program is to help people find peace and balance within themselves, whatever that means to them. And we support folks of all ages. So we have a staff who supports child survivors or those who are at risk for trafficking. We have really wonderful intensive case managers who do everything from supporting the community members with their appointments, to helping them find housing in the community, to transporting them to new housing if that place is no longer safe. We also have a really wonderful mental health worker on our team who is also a clinician similar to the clinicians on the Mukayam team, so that we can really operate from a wraparound approach right in our team. We also have a couple of wonderful outreach workers who have done a lot of work to expand all across the GTA. So our outreach team has done some work in supporting the Mount Dennis and Malvern hubs, the Scarborough hub, definitely the downtown at the NYRC hub, all over. And we also have specialized programming for our survivors who are looking to ground some of their healing in cultural perspectives. We use the Cree Medicine Wheel, and it's a way for them to get teachings and understand how those teachings can really be fundamental to their healing. And so our team offers a wide range of services, and we collaborate with every other part of the agency all the time on an ongoing basis. We also have family violence workers who do a lot of work to support community members who are experiencing family violence or domestic violence within their homes or with their partners. And our family violence workers really, I mean, they're the epitome of meeting people where they're at. People who are going through a situation with family violence sometimes just need that, immediate support to escape, and our family violence workers are right there to support them with that. They are really wonderful at doing safety planning with our community members. Safety planning is a really big part of holistic services because we want people to be ready, with options for themselves when difficult things arise. And so safety planning is really crucial to what we do. The family violence workers also offer a lot of training in agency so that all of our staff who are coming into their roles have an understanding of what family violence looks like within our communities and how best to support them. We also have a lot of case management type services, especially on the concurrent team, which supports folks who have substance use challenges and mental health struggles. And what that can look like is very, very different for different community members, but it supports both youth and adults. And they do everything from supporting people with, external referrals as appropriate, to supporting when there's sort of an imminent crisis, to working with the community member to prevent those crises as they come up. And then we have holistic case management. And what that looks like is kind of operating from a really supportive framework where meeting people where they're at, but also logistically helping them to navigate with what can be very difficult systems to make sense of. We also have school board clinicians to support folks who are, struggling within the school system. So the school board clinicians will actually work with the families and work with the schools to make sure that school is the most successful place possible for the youth. All of our services always follow the prevention, education, intervention, and healing model. And we're always collaborating with one another so that as challenges come up, we're really working in the best way that we can to serve our community members in ways that are meaningful to them. Next slide, please. So this is just a little snapshot of the Cree Medicine Wheel. The Cree Medicine Wheel is the wheel that we use. It was teaching, all the teachings that guide our agency were found in ceremony. And Herb Nabagon really helped to discover this teaching that grounds our holistic services with my manager, Charlene Avalos. She's the one who taught the wheel in this way to me, and it really is so foundational to all of holistic services. So we start in the Eastern doorway because that's the place of spirit, and that's the place that's what entered the material world first. And then we move to the psychological and the social, which is the place of relationships. And then we move to the emotional, and then we move to the physical. And when we talk about spirit, we're talking about identity. We're talking about who you are inside. We're talking about your very being. And we always like to think about the challenges that somebody is going through are going to affect somebody on a spiritual level. And the more disempowered a person is, the harder their life is going to be. And so we really work with people to help them build up their identity and to figure out who they are and who they want to be. When we move to the place of relationships, we're always thinking about you know, the relationships that a person is coming into our offices or, you know, out to the park if we're meeting them in a park somewhere. What relationships have impacted them, and what relationships are they carrying? And we think about that in terms of the 7 generations before us, and then carrying the futures of those 7 generations after us. When we talk about emotional, we're talking about what it means to have feelings inside, and what it and how to process, how to cope. What do you do with those things when they're sort of coming up for you? And we recognize that a lot of people can really struggle sometimes with how to cope with difficult emotions, because not all of us have been modeled healthy ways to cope. And so we really want people to get to a space of contentment and peace and joy, and also to be able to cope with things in a really healthy way that's meaningful for them when things get challenging. And then obviously for physical, we're talking about physical safety. And we're also talking about, you know, skill building with our community members, like actually teaching people tangible skills so that life becomes a little bit easier for them. So all of our services on holistic services, from the Healing Lodge, the Medeguin Lodge, to you know, healing teams 1, 2, 3, and 4, to our intake team, who are always supporting community members when they're calling in and they're looking for supports. Everything is always operating from a holistic model. And that's what makes our services, I think, unique in the city. Thanks. Oh, and to access our services, you can contact our holistic intake department. We also have a duty worker who can support with walk-ins. And yeah, or if you have any questions at all, like, please don't hesitate to call. We really do want people to, you know, be happy and healthy and thrive instead of just surviving. And so sometimes that means asking for help, and holistic intake is a really good place to do that. And I think I'm introducing Jessica Wilson now.
Maybe we'll back up one slide and we'll say hi to Jess. Hi, Jess. How's it going?
Okay, good. How are you? Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Wilson. I'm the manager of early years and community programs with the Child and Family Services. I've been with the organization for, I was just counting like 20 years in some capacity. I started as one of their youth camp counselors when I was just 15 years old. And I've now been working with them for the last 17 years in some kind of full-time capacity. I really can't say anything more than what our lovely colleagues have shared about holistic services and the organization. And I welcome any questions, and I welcome you into our spaces. And I look forward to meeting many new people and bring some friends. Miigwech. And then I believe I'm going to introduce Mark Antenisoff, our Director of Quality Assurance. Miigwech.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everybody, for an amazing presentation. I'm actually amazed about the spectrum of services being offered in community and the folks that are delivering it. And I thoroughly enjoyed that video. So it was an amazing presentation, and thank you for sharing that with community and folks here. You know, we're transitioning, you know, into an amazing presentation that's full of heart and passion, to looking at more around looking at policy. And so it's a difficult transition, not as exciting as what just transpired, but I think it's still as important to discuss and really look at and connecting this to our journey of decolonizing child welfare. Terry did mention that we're on our 5th episode, so we've been doing this for a while. So I thought it was a good opportunity for us to sort of reflect on why we're doing this reform work, and just remind ourselves where we came from and where we're heading. And so, you know, just to remind folks of where we're coming from, you know, the provincial child welfare mandate, the agency accepted in 2004. You know, we do recognize it's a colonial mandate informed by colonial values, reflected in its standards, assessment, and eligibility tools, legal framework, and funding priorities. But however, as what you heard here, you know, Native Child has used its provincial mandate to take control of child welfare services from mainstream agencies. And in doing so, Native Child has significantly mitigated the harms of mainstream child welfare by bringing in Indigenous values and culture into our decision making, providing holistic culture-based prevention services, and bringing hundreds of children and youth back into the embrace of the Indigenous community. However, accepting the mandate was just the beginning of a long journey. Colonial systems are not designed to be easily changed, and our collective journey has not been easy, and it's not complete. In terms of why we're doing what we're doing, we do recognize that systems can be discriminatory, it can be unfair to Indigenous families. We recognize the system has too many Indigenous kids in the system, and systems can create negative outcomes for families. And that's what systems can do. But we know that that's offset by the benefits of systems that support children and families to achieve better outcomes. So really the journey we are on is a difficult one. We want to minimize the harms that systems can sometimes bring, and we want to strengthen opportunities. In terms of what reform looks like to me, I just want to share some of my personal history. But as folks may know, my mom attended the Shinnewack Indian residential school in the 50s. In the 60s, my mom left her community, Sagamore, for Toronto. And while in Toronto, my mom had a child. My mom gave this child up for adoption, obviously due to some history. I've never met my sister, and we just actually recently found out my sister passed away. My mom is not doing well health-wise, and she doesn't know the story of her daughter or my sister. And so as a family, we have a lot to process. And so just looking at my own journey, what I've reflected upon is that, my mom is a product of a genocide, and our family has been impacted by intergenerational trauma. And so we could use a little bit of help. And so when I reflect on what reform means to me, it's about defining how we as a community can help collectively without causing additional trauma and harm. And that may seem easy to do, but how do we collectively come together and build consensus around this? So really our journey will require us to sit in circle together, to be kind to one another, and to self-determine what support looks like. And that's really the collective journey ahead. It sounds simple, but it can be very difficult given the genocide, the intergenerational trauma, and the healing that still is going on in community. And so this brings us to our reform pillars. And so we're trying to unpack some very complex systems so that we as a community can have these conversations together. And so when we look at some of the reform ideas that we have, we look at that reconciling child welfare within community as a priority. We see child welfare as a resource for families. It's part of a healing journey. We know that not all folks see that, but our goal is to reduce the fear, stigma, and shame around the system so that when moms need services, they can do so proudly. And that's the vision and conversation that we want to have with community. We want to see community programs as a system. This is reducing children in care. So all the services that you heard mentioned today, other organizations are doing the same thing. And so if we can collectively work together as a system, we feel that we can improve community level outcomes. And in doing so, reduce the number of children in care. And so it's really how do we act together to provide wraparound for families, just not here at Native Child, but within all the agencies that service families. Another pillar that we want to sort of have a conversation around is family networks to thrive. These are your friends and family. This is utilizing who you call at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is really your support network. And this is really what we know that's going to take folks to thrive, is really developing that network and support network and really leveraging it when there's a crisis. And so that's another conversation that we want to have, is how do we leverage these networks to really help families in crisis. And it's not dealing with the child welfare system, it's not dealing with community programs, it's really developing those natural networks so folks can rely on their friends and family for culture in terms of supports they need. And then lastly, we believe that if we can manage all these and really support these, the number of children in care will drastically be reduced. But we also understand that we want to look at child welfare and reform what happens inside. So if we go to the next slide, these are some of the tangible things that we want to have discussions on and sort of unpack together. But when we look at like who does what within the child welfare system, This is the task allocation. Many of the tasks that are currently being done in the child welfare system can easily be done outside of the system. And so we want to make sure that that happens and that's properly funded. We also want to look at what happens outside of the child welfare system, and maybe some of that stuff needs to be brought into the child welfare system. Another one is prevention within the child welfare system itself. Majority of children that are part of the child welfare system never come into care. And this is a perfect opportunity to do wraparound with the family and to make sure that not just holistic services, but all the agencies in Toronto, all the First Nations are really doing wraparound around this family. And so there's a different way that we can look at how we do wraparound. So system integration is really going to be key to transforming child welfare, to make sure that child welfare isn't an island by itself, that is integrated within childcare, early years, youth programming, elder services. It's to really make sure that child welfare is seen in that positive light so that we're supporting those moms. The next thing that we want to look at is tools. So we know that the only way to enter the child welfare system and to exit it is with a tool. There's the eligibility spectrum, there's parenting capacities, and we know none of these have been validated by the Indigenous community. They are mainstream products. With embedded in those structures are discrimination. And so we really want to see Indigenous products, Indigenous tools being designed and validated by community. And so that's going to be one of our points of conversation. The next piece is staff well-being. We want to really create the environments for staff to make sure that they have the time to do the things that they need to do, that their well-being is taken care of so they can support community as well. So we want to unpack all the staff well-being to make sure that we have the right staff, the right training, the right culture-based approaches, that staff are well taken care of to support community. The next one that we want to look at is decision validation. So a lot of our decisions can be very heavy. We decide to do investigations, to move things to ongoing, to bring a child into care. So these decisions need to be supported by Indigenous ways of knowing. They need to be supported by families. There needs to be transparency around decisions. And so there needs to be a best practice approach to decision making. And so we want to unpack that with community as we go forward in this journey. And then we want to look at family experiences. And so this is where we want to make sure that families are listened to, they're seen as experts in their own lives, and that they're partnered with. And so we really want to capture that family experience so that we can, in real time, improve communications between community members and staff. But also over time, we want to improve the system. And the only way we can do that is to collect experiences from families as they go through the system. And then lastly, we want to look at outcomes to make sure that we have the right accountabilities. And all this is underpinned by the Indigenous worldview, best interests of the child, all the self-determination practices that are coming from First Nations, including Bill C-92. And it's really grounded in what is important to community. And this is looking at the language, culture, connections, and making sure that family are connected with community. So this is what's informing our decisions as we move forward. But we're trying to break down the conversation in a way that each one of these pillars is, we want to have conversation with community, with our stakeholders, with different First Nations, and really unpack how we want to transform the system to make an impact over the long term. I'll throw it back to Terry.
Right, well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Juliana, Jessica, Jennifer, Daniela, Siobhan. That was an amazing presentation, and it's always so nice to see all of the different supports and services, and how wide your reach is, right? From Scarborough to Mount Dennis to downtown. So it was really informative, and I really enjoyed it. I want to take a moment to throw it over to Pat Green. Hi, Pat. How are you doing? You're still on mute.
I'm doing good, thank you.
So I thought I see one question in the Q&A, and I'll encourage folks to start adding their questions. But I wonder, Pat, if before we get into the Q&A from community, any of your thoughts? I know you've been really instrumental in supporting a lot of the programs that were talked about, particularly the camping programs, our powwow. So I just wonder from that point of view, if you've got any thoughts about the holistic services or our presentation today.
Good presentations. I enjoyed every one of them. I think we're right on. There's a lot of changes happening, and there's a lot of talk around what can happen and what should happen. there's a lot of humanization that is happening in the Aboriginal community, and I guess being accepted to the colonies. I've been part of working with, not being part of Native Child since the 90s, and I've watched as it grows, as it grew, and as it still continues to grow today. I was asked to do a presentation one time to a bunch of social workers, and what I congratulated them on was coming to the Aboriginal community, because we are the expert in child welfare. Our whole existence was based on the upbringing of our children, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And this thing called holistic well-being, that's where that comes from. We never taught our children what to think. We taught our children how to think. We taught our children how to be. And we've been fighting a fight for the past 260 years on fighting to be recognized as human beings. And the fight is so enormous that we forgot how to be. So when I look back over the past 250 years, I can see where our elders' existence was around the upbringing of our children, because without our children, we will not exist. And I really believe our ancestors knew that. So in order to have healthy families and a healthy community, we had to have healthy children, considering those four areas: body, mind, spirit, and emotions. And we had become experts over thousands of years on how to raise our children. And I really believe that sometime down the road, from that time to where we are now, it was never taken into consideration. And I'm glad of the consideration that is happening now through agencies, through the funding sources and all those other colony organizations, that we are still human beings, that we still focus on our children. We still focus on our existence as human beings, whether we're Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Lakota, Cree, Dene, that our family values are now being acknowledged by the colonies out there. And I think it's really important for us to take note in that. I think it's really important, because we were dehumanized for the past 265 years. And it's nice to see that we're being acknowledged for those, I guess, for the gifts of raising children, the gift of being a family, the gift of being a community member, the gift of our, I guess, with our relationships to the colonies and to people outside of our communities. It's there. It's not just singing and drumming and dancing. It's about our whole existence and the acknowledgement and welcoming from the spirit world into the material world. I'm just happy to be a witness to it. It's been a long time coming, and it's going to take a lot more than an hour and a half or 2 hours to talk about the transition. It's going to take a lot of negotiations back and forth to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, because we're not just dealing with one nation here. We're dealing with nations across Turtle Island. And I have to remember, working in the communities, that my job isn't to make instant Mohawks or instant Ojibways. My job was to help those people, the people that I worked with, become who they are as an Aboriginal person, and to revert back to their culture, revert back to their teachers, to their elders, and then move forward from there. I think it's really important that we involve the elders, we involve their cultures, we involve each one of the cultures, because we're not just one nation. And I like where things are going. And I want to thank Native Child for acknowledging that part. And we've got a long ways to go. It's going to cause some dissension. It's going to cause a lot of different points of view. But like when we go into our smudge, it's about clearing our minds so that we can hear each other and see each other, so that we can see that our children are important. They have always been important, and regardless of our, I guess our interfered belief systems and our interfered value systems, that it's always been on children. And that's where I like to be. That's where I like to come from. And that's where I like to negotiate from. So I like where we're going. Yeah, it's going to cause a lot of dissensions and a lot of angers and a lot of fears. But we have to be adult enough to deal with them. We have to be confident in ourselves to be able to negotiate and talk about where we're going with our children. And someone said it a long time ago, let's put our minds together. Let's be adults, put our minds together and see what we can come up with for our children. And I'm holding both agency and the community responsible for that. Let's put our minds together and let's put our hearts together and see what we can come up with for our children. So I like where we're going.
Thanks, Pat. I always love listening to you, and I like where we're going to, and really appreciate you taking the time and your thoughtful comments. I'm seeing a couple questions in the Q&A. So I think what we do sort of for this part, and I'll let the audience know, that they can type things into the chat. If I don't read your question specifically, a lot of times we get questions and they're very similar. So I might rephrase them or kind of group them together. I think the first one, maybe I'll just direct the first one to Jessica in regards to all the services that, but specifically for youth. So who can access these services, and are Indigenous youth throughout the GTA welcome?
Great question. Yes, Indigenous youth throughout the GTA are welcome at all of our sites and locations. Our youth catchment goes from like 16 to 29. Our hubs, we also tackle those middle years, those 7 to 15 year olds. And then for all of our early on programs are welcome to the community. So anyone, it could be allies, it could be Indigenous families, but they're welcome. They're just open doors.
Thank you, Jess. And then I think another question, I don't know if I really understand the question, and so I'm curious about it. And if I get it wrong, then the person who asked this question, maybe you could type a little follow-up question. But it's thanks for the presentations and appreciation for all the insights that the community member gained. But they're specifically wondering if there are programs that have integrated animal-assisted interventions. I don't know what those are. So I didn't know if that was a question about the ability for folks to bring in service animals, or if it was about, maybe land-based programs where we're actually working with animals. So if that's not ringing a bell for presenters, I'm gonna ask the community member maybe to clarify a little bit, because I did think it was interesting. But we'll go on to the next one. And I think this is probably a question for a couple folks to take an answer. Maybe Jess again, since we have you here, and maybe Jeffrey or Mark want to come into this one as well. But they're asking about our agency, Native Child, working with agencies out of the region.
I would say we definitely work with agencies outside of Toronto in a variety of different ways, depending on, the service that we're providing. We definitely do knowledge sharing and learn from other agencies. A lot of times we locate, we're working with a family that's in the city of Toronto that has a connection to a First Nation that's, really far in Ontario, or maybe even in another province or territory. And so we'll have to often work with communities in those spaces if we're, supporting that family to get back home. But Mark or Jess, I don't know if you want to comment about any other partnerships that we have. We do have a lot of them. Yeah.
I know for when we look at some of the reform work, it is going to be a national and provincial collaboration. So when we look at the tools that we use, and there's so many, they are all colonial. Native Child can't possibly create its own tools. We're going to have to rely on, there's an institution called INASIO. We're going to have to rely on other Indigenous organizations, other Indigenous institutions to really look at these tools, to really craft something for community. And it's also have to be co-developed with community. So this is definitely going to be bigger than the GTA. And so just on that one example on creating tools that work for community, it's going to take a collaboration with community itself, with other institutions, sharing of knowledge keepers. So these tools are definitely going to have to be, it's going to have to be a collaborative process. But then on the other hand, I think at any given time, I believe we're dealing with 60 First Nations when it comes to children and families that we're currently working with. And so we get guidance from those nations, support from those nations. Moms get support and families get support from those nations. Knowledge keepers are just not local to Toronto. So we're definitely, when we look at community, we know, like for me, Sagamuk, that's my home First Nation, like the schooling, ceremonies, it's all connected to my First Nation. So even though I live here in Toronto, I'm still well connected to the institutions on my First Nation. So I think we're definitely, this is a collaborative process.
Great answers. And I just wanted to kind of highlight too, some of the work that's I see happening. Some of the workers on my team are involved with this, and you know, it's kind of highlighted a bit in last week's annual general meeting. But the work that our band rep and then band reps from First Nations are doing in collaboration together to provide, like, you know, service excellence and really great wraparound supports for children in care, children in kin placements. I know that a lot of that work goes on, so we're collaborating with other agencies, both on and off reserve in other jurisdictions, as well as First Nations, to just ensure that children are getting the best possible service regardless of where they're residing, which kind of leads into the next question. And it was directed specifically to Pat. So I'd love to hear your thoughts first, Pat, but I think probably Jeffrey and Mark will want to add to this as well. Is it possible to have a child welfare program in an Indigenous community? Can it ever be normal for the community to accept child welfare, given the history?
Wow. We are the end results of 265 years minimum. We are the end results of abuses, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And it was done so well that once it stopped, we continued on into ourselves. We are either the end results of that, or we can be the end of it. And I really believe that working in collaboration with child welfare and traditional teachings, and getting right back to who we are as Aboriginal people, we can work collaboratively. It's embedded in our culture. Child welfare is embedded in our culture, and that was embedded hundreds of thousands of years before contact. Child welfare has only been around since the 1900s. Before then, it was animal welfare. So is it welcome in our communities? No, because we have to deal with so many truths on where we are today as a community. And I really believe that, you know, working together, we can get to the truths and get it back embedded into our community values. And I think that's really important, that we work together. Let's put our heads together. Let's put our minds together. Let's put our hearts, let's put our culture together. Let's bring it back. And I think it's really important. I really believe that, you know, as I've seen a lot of social workers working very hard, knowing that their end result is that they don't have a job. And I really believe that we can make that happen so that we do not any longer need child welfare agencies doing the work of family, doing the work of community. I hope that answered a bit of that question. We do have to work together.
I think it's a great answer. And I'm just going to speak on behalf of my good friend, Jennifer Turner. And, we talk about child welfare as a system, but I really like how in the agency we talk about child and family well-being services, because that's where we're aiming towards, right? And I hear a lot of that in your comments, Pat, that we're looking for physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional, well-being and health and growth for our community members. I just wanted to add that. But I also want to give Jeffrey and Mark maybe opportunity for your thoughts on that question.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything Pat just said. I mean, I think colonial child welfare organizations don't work in Indigenous communities. They never have. That's why the overrepresentation is not changing, right? So we know that if we have a child welfare agency that's based on the same old colonial tools and approaches, it doesn't work for Indigenous people, right? But we have, new pathways for First Nations to exercise their inherent jurisdiction through things like Bill C-92. Even before Bill C-92, we had nations that exercised their jurisdiction and started building their own systems, right? So I think the question forces me to think about, what do I mean when I say child welfare, right? Which Terry is why we say child and family well-being at Native Child, right? Mark mentioned at the beginning that we did accept a colonial mandate as directed by community, and we have this imperfect system. And I do fundamentally believe that for it really to work, it needs to be transformed through, Indigenous self-determination. That's why Mark talks so much about changing the tools, right? All of the values that underpin the system, the assessment tools, the practice, all of that has to be driven by the Indigenous community. It's when Indigenous communities take on that stuff and reshape it in ways that are grounded in their values and their teachings and their language that we start to see systems work, right? And we're at an amazing time of transformation in Canada right now because of Bill C-92, because of Truth and Reconciliation, where we have a new opportunity to do that work. That's what this learning series has really been about, and it's been a foundational first step in that larger process, right? You can't transform a system that you don't understand. So we decided that for the beginning, for our first year of engagement, we would be totally transparent about the current state of Native Child. This is what we're doing right now. The next stage then is to sit with community and say, well, if this is where we are right now in our development, as an Indigenous agency that did take a step forward and took an imperfect colonial mandate, how do we get to where we need to be, right? How do we get to where we need to be working in collaboration together for our children, right? How do we get to where we need to be in terms of self-determination, in terms of ensuring that our practice and our tools and our approaches, all of that are created with and by and for community. So I think it can work, but under a very particular circumstance when driven by and directed by community. Yeah, Miigwech.
Yeah, I agree. Everything what Pat and Jeffrey has said, I think that's spot on. I mean, for me, I'm trying to unpack it from my personal perspective, in the sense that when I look at child welfare within the Indigenous community, I simplify it by, how can we help a mom? How can we help people who want help? And so when I look at my mom who attended the Indian residential schools, the question is, she needs help. I'm impacted through intergenerational trauma. I need help. So right now we have systems that are there to help us. But when I look at this question of child welfare or child and family well-being, I want to honor the journey of people who come before us. So the genocide was real. The intergenerational trauma is real. Addictions, mental health, family violence are real. I know moms need help because I knew my mom needed it. So what is there for folks? And that's why with some of the pillars that we have, but one of them is family network. So definitely we want to rely on our own family and friends. But when they're not enough, we look to community programs or we look to child welfare systems for support. And that's why I feel very passionately, and it's going to take leaders in the community. I don't want to deny a mom's story who needs help, whether that's addictions, mental health, and they should receive help without fear, stigma, or shame. When we are silent on the issue of a mom needing help, And I think there's nothing wrong with a mom if, you know, a child needs to go to auntie and uncle for a bit because she needs to go, you know, she needs some dedicated resources for herself. There's nothing wrong with that. So where I think I'm passionate is, why does a mom feel shame to access resourcing? That I think is horrific. And that is where I would like Indigenous leaders to step up and be like, if we deny that mom's services, we're denying the genocide. We're denying residential school survivors' stories, because they're going to be the first ones to stand up to say, I never had the resources to care for the kids the way I wanted to. And my kids need help. But yet now when the kids need help, they are shamed to access those services. So I think as a community, we have a lot of conversation to do. But I'm kind of like upset when a mom feels shamed. And we learned from this learning series through family finding that moms won't engage their family network because then they have to tell them that they're involved in child welfare. So now this child could theoretically be in foster care instead of being with an auntie and uncle because of the shame. So this process, I'm really looking to leaders to stand up and to have a conversation around the system they would like to see. So how do you want to address addictions, family violence, and mental health in our communities caused by a genocide? Like, so these are the conversations that I want to have. And I do believe that it will come to, how do we best support families? And it's definitely not going to be the current child welfare colonial system. It's going to be something that is driven by community, co-developed by community. But I feel that we're at a stage now that it's even difficult to have a conversation. And that's where I look to the knowledge carriers, to others to be like, how do we have this conversation so we can make a better system for moms? But given that my mom's history with residential schools, I'm not happy with the fact that a mom is feeling shame to access services. So that to me is like not right. So I would love to sit in circle and have, in a good way, have some conversation to address some of those issues.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, Pat. The person who wrote the question did say miigwech to Pat Green. Your answer was hard to accept. She's not sure she can, but you have her thinking. So thank you for that. And it was funny because as we've gone through this journey through the learning series, the National Forum, some of my own, research and listening and reading, one of the things that I find really interesting and like very, very exciting, because I'd like to ask this question again in 5 years to First Nations that have enacted their own coordination agreements under Bill C-92, to see what First Nations delivered services are looking like on First Nations, because the folks who are on that journey are really, really excited to get their mandates, to have that jurisdiction on their territories and in their nation. So I guess we need to flag that. And if we're still coming back to these in a few years from now, I'd love to bring in some of those people that are doing child welfare, child family well-being, that are taking, I was going to say self-determination in their jurisdictions. So I think it's going to be a really interesting landscape. You got your hand up, Pat. Yeah. You can interrupt me anytime.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone, and I think it's really important, that I like to take it down as it's an old Mohawk saying, do not lead, I may not follow. Do not follow, I may not lead, but walk with me and be my friend. And I really think that we have to start meeting without going to a meeting. I think that we need to get rid of this colonial thing about having meetings, because I do not like meetings. I like coming together and sharing thoughts and values with people and put it out in the middle of the floor. And whatever's useful to the individual, I think that's really important. I really believe that when we're led into meetings, that there is an agenda. And usually the agendas are one-sided. And I really believe that if we can get back to that in having meetings without being at a meeting, having cultural days without it being cultural days, I think that when we can get rid of some of the labels, when we can put together some of our language into those labels, like aunties and uncles of communities, grandmas and grandpas and dudas of communities, as opposed to sacred elder or the abuser or the let's get rid of some of the labels. I feel much more comfortable in participating, and that's coming from a long line of working in the communities, not just Aboriginal communities, but in the colonies. I think that we need to put to rest some of those colonial thoughts and values, and acknowledge what we have as Aboriginal people. Let's bring it forward.
Thanks, Pat. I think there's 10 panelists here who would also agree. Less meetings. So maybe less meetings, but more conversation is what I'm hearing. More listening, less talking. So thank you for that. We have one more question. And I think I'm going to bring it back to Siobhan, because we heard from you at the very, very beginning, Siobhan, and we're kind of winding down. So I thought maybe it's a chance for you to answer the question and maybe any final thoughts about the holistic services as a whole. It's a question about Two-Spirit folks. So in regards to transitional housing, that some of the youth feel they have to choose between male and female transition houses. Any plans for a future Two-Spirit transition house or other programs specifically for Two-Spirit people?
Thank you for that, Terry. We are addressing and looking at responding in a more positive and forward way with our Two-Spirit community members. We have an internal group of folks that are advising and giving us suggestions and ideas about how we can better serve our Two-Spirit community. So we have a lot of ideas and thoughts about what that's going to look like to come. We're also connecting with our colleagues, Keith McCready, who is the ED of Two-Spirit First Nations. We're consulting with him about how best to serve the Two-Spirit community. So I would say to the community member asking the question, I can certainly appreciate the challenge of feeling like they have to pick one or the other of that designation, and we are looking to see how we can be more responsive. So stay tuned, because there's news coming.
Lovely, thank you, Siobhan. It's really good to hear that. So we're getting towards the end of our time together. Final thoughts from the panelists.
I just want to say that for the programming that's offered sort of on holistic services, you'll see many of our flyers going out to community all the time. Most, if not all, are very gender inclusive, of all genders, non-binary folks across the spectrum. And we very, very, very much want you to attend and to be part of our programming and to meet you, so that we can listen to more of what you need, so that we can create programs for you based on what you're asking for and what you need. So thanks.
Thanks, Daniela. And I've been working with my team, so it's my great privilege and honor to work with the cultural folks. Well, there's lots of cultural folks at the agency, but a dedicated team of cultural resource workers, knowledge carriers, community elders like Pat. I said the avert, community knowledge carriers like Pat, and folks from all nations. And something that's become really important to us in service of community is kind of removing language that speaks to any kind of gender binary. So being really, really open and inclusive, so that we're not talking necessarily about men's teachings and women's teachings, but we're talking about teachings for folks who, as Kevin Fujita says, who are feeling called to work with the fire today, or feeling called to work with the water, and really want community and staff that are listening today to let us know how we're doing. And if you see language in our flyers, and I'm sure Danielle and anyone here be the same way, if we're not using the right language, we're not getting it right, let us know, and we'll work harder to serve everybody better in a way that feels really inclusive and good. Any other thoughts from our panelists? I want to thank you all for being here. I learned a lot. I think this is a great presentation. The kudos to Youth Services for their amazing video too. It was really nice to see people and see the space, and felt really engaging. I want to also thank some of the folks in the background, so especially the communications team, Kayla and Frida, Alex from IT, all the people that help make these webinars possible. And thank you to Jeffrey and Mark and Siobhan and Juliana, Daniela, Jessica, who did I miss? Jennifer, I knew I missed someone. Want to really appreciate you guys being here today and your time. And especially thank you to the audience today and for the great questions and for being here and spending your time with us. And we will have another one of these sessions coming up in August, and we're getting really ready and excited to be back on September 30th and really report on this whole year of learning and this great journey that we've been on as an agency and as a community when it comes to decolonizing child welfare. So without any further ado, I want to bring you back, Pat. I guess ask for your final thoughts and to close us out in a good way.
When I think of working with Native Child and Family Services and think about working with Mandate and the colonial system out there, I think of a triangle. And they say stuff rolls downhill. And there's a challenge in putting that triangle into our circles. And I really believe that's going to be a challenge to every one of us, whether we're part of that circle or part of that triangle. And it's going to take a lot of courage and a lot of stamina to work those things out. And I think it's necessary. And I wish everyone the luck. I wish you the strength and the courage to deal with that. In the beginning, I asked that we have open minds and open heart to deal with some of these issues so that we can learn as well as share. And at the end of a meeting, at the end of the circle, it's up to the individual to take what you learned and to apply it to your own path. And I believe that's going to be the challenge for every one of us. So I've been on this challenge for over 71 years now, and it's not going to get any easier. And if it was too easy, then it's not worth it. So let's continue on with that. So we're here. Thank you very much. Miigwech, Nyaweh, and all those other ways of saying thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Miigwech and Bamapi.
Miigwech.
Thanks, everyone.